And x equals a number is definitely the vertical line. Let me share my screen and let's review this. I'm trying to share it in a little bit different way, so I hope this works. I'm not going to be able to have as many colors, I don't think. So if I've got P and Q, angles are congruent. Angles are congruent is Q, and angles are vertical, that's P. So Q and then P. My eyeballs don't like it very much when there's no curly Q's on the end of those. So sometimes I get those wrong if I'm doing that. Oh, I need to open the slides, I think. Makes it so much better. On the next one, if we draw in our lines, we can go straight up from the T and then straight over from the S. And then we want to count how far that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So A in Pythagorean theorem will be 8. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 is going to be my B, because my right angle is opposite the hypotenuse, which is C in Pythagorean theorem. So if we do A squared plus B squared equals C squared, we would make 8 the A, so 8 squared, and we would make 17 the B, 17 squared equals C squared. So then we've got 64 plus, is it 289? No. Yes, 289. And C squared. So that's going to be the square root of 353. Okay, you got to make sure you're using Pythagorean theorem there. Pythagorean theorem on number 2. Wish I'd put the links in here, but alas, I didn't. So x equals -1. When x equals -1, we're going to go to that -1 and we're going to make a vertical line here. X equals -1. X equals -1, right? And then x equals -1. X equals -1 definitely does not split this guy in half. There's 2 on this side and 4 on this side. So that's not going to work. I've got, like if I just look at the top here, I've got 1, 2 at the top. And I've got 1, 2, 3 at the top. So it doesn't work on, I think that looks like a piece of candy. It does work here though, I think. I've got 1 on the left and 1 on the right. And then over here, I've got 1 on the left and 1 on the right. So then we've got to go to y equals -2. Where y equals -2, I find that -2 and I slice it this way. This guy is definitely not sliced exactly in half. That is not a line of symmetry. But y equals -2 right here, this definitely is a line of symmetry. I've got 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So that's how you would do that. Y equals -2. You find that -2 and make a straight horizontal line. And then x equals -1. You find that -1x and make a vertical line. So Hoy is horizontal and Vux is vertical, right? Hoy is a y line, Vux is an x line. Remember that a little bit. Those are just hard to look at, right? Oops. Waste so much time just navigating through. All right. Question number 4. So this was the test, right? Over half of you finished the test and did fantastic. I've already put the grades in. I decided to make, I told you I was going to make 80 a 100, but I made everything above 80 extra credit, not just a 100. If you did not finish the test yesterday, and I know Schoology was glitching, come to office hours today. I will open up our class Zoom meeting. So come to the class Zoom meeting because the Google Meet was giving us issues yesterday. Come to this class Zoom meeting at 2 o'clock today. We'll do some of the test review again and see if you have any questions, and then I'll open the test back up. But if you don't come between 2 and 3 today, you're not going to have access to the test. Okay, so if you have not finished it, if you have questions, if Schoology was glitching, come at 2 o'clock today. If you can't come at 2 o'clock today, message me and let me know why. Okay, but basically we need to always start at the angle we're given. We want to find the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is always opposite that right angle. The adjacent side is always the other side. So there's two sides that make the angle that we're given. One is the hypotenuse, the other is the adjacent. So if you have a hard time identifying the opposite, maybe do hypotenuse and adjacent first. They're the ones that make that angle, and then the opposite is the other one, okay? You're going to have information for two of those three letters. I have 80 for the H, and I have X for the A. I have no information for the O, so I'm going to cross it out. I don't need it. So now we've got to remember our kind of memorization tool. So, TOA. It's important to be able to spell that correctly because that's how you figure out what your equations are. If I have no O, I can't use sine and I can't use tangent. I've got to use cosine. That's the one that has the A and the H. So we're going to do cosine of the angle, which is 20 degrees. The angle always goes there, equals A over H. That's my fraction. The A is in the numerator and the H is in the denominator. So A over H. A lot of times I put that invisible one right there. That just makes it easier to do my math. And when you do that math, cosine 20 times 80, so 80 times cosine of 20. Usually I put my side length first just because it makes the calculator do fewer mistakes. I think you're going to get 75. How do we feel about those, ladies and gentlemen?
Wait, I understand because I have the same answer, but why don't we put 80 in front?
So you don't have to put the 80 in the front because you're multiplying. You can do cosine 20 times 80, but if you forget to close that parenthesis, sometimes it does like cosine of 2080 or cosine of, 20 times 80. It just makes the order of operations have fewer mistakes if you put the 80 in the front. But as long as you remember to close the parentheses, you're golden. It doesn't matter. You're welcome. That's a great question. I promise you 6 or 7 other people were trying to figure that out. Good morning, Isis. We're reviewing the Pear Deck. The link is in the Schoology page. For the next one, how do I find the range of sides? What math do I have to do to find that first box? Absolutely. So we're going to subtract those two numbers, and I think we get 19. Is that correct? And then what do we do for the second box? Add. And when I add, I get 67. This question is a little bit different though. So it's asking us what are the possible third sides. So if I think about a number line, I would put the 19 on one side and I would put the 67 on the other side. Those are open circles. I can't have them equal those numbers because that would be a flat triangle. I want everything in the middle of 19 and 67. So I can't choose 19 and I can't choose 67. If I was supposed to highlight these boxes, I would have to highlight everything in the middle, but not those two endpoints. And then it can't be less than 19. That's kind of obvious. And it can't be more than 67. So that one's kind of obvious. The trick here is to not include the 19 and the 67 in your answer choices. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of, maybe? Because if you think about how we did that in the Desmos and we did it so wicked fast, this is like those two things are on a hinge. So if I open up the 19 and the 60, or the 24 and the 43, it's going to make a flat triangle. If I put 67, it's going to be two flat lines. There's going to be no elevation in my triangle. Same thing if I put 24 and 63 this way. If I close that off with 19, then I'm going to have two flat lines that are 43 inches long. They're not going to have any space, any height to actually make a triangle. Second to the last question. I know you're getting so tired of doing these, right? But you're getting so good at them. So you draw your triangle, the angle formed with trumpets and flutes. So trumpets and flutes create the angle that's 45 degrees. And then the angle formed by flutes and clarinets. So flutes and clarinets form an angle that's 68 degrees. Everybody that drew a triangle also labeled this one as 67. So then we're going from least to greatest. The least angle is the 45, so the least side is the clarinet. So clarinet has to come first. And then the greatest angle is the 68. So the greatest side is going to be the trumpet. So clarinet, flute, and trumpet. Questions about how I did that? The trick is to label the sides with those trumpet, flute, and clarinet. We've definitely seen that question before. These are all released SOL questions, by the way. I have no idea if you guys will actually be taking an SOL or not. Hopefully they just give you a verified credit like they did last year. You know, the 11th grade English test that was supposed to be going on this week has been canceled, or well, not canceled, but postponed. You guys heard that rumor? It is a true rumor. Yeah, so 11th graders were supposed to start testing yesterday. And because we're now in red, because the COVID numbers have gone up, they postponed the test indefinitely. It's not even rescheduled. And our tests in January have also been postponed about a week. So we are going to be able to slow down a little bit. And then as soon as they postpone them even further or cancel them, then we'll get back to having some fun in geometry class. But yeah, so that's kind of the state of that. Last question on our warm-up. The vertices of the polygon shown below are rotated 180 degrees. So remember, that's where you switch the X and the Y and then switch them back. So 180 degrees is going to stay the same order. We're just going to change the signs and then reflect it over the Y-axis. That's what makes this problem kind of a nightmare, is it's two things at the same time, and it's just not very nice. So if we start with point A right now is -5, 4. -5 and 4. I don't know where my 5 went, right? So if I switch to go into quadrant 3 and then switch back to go into quadrant 4, they're going to stay 5, 4. But quadrant 4 has plus minus as its pattern, right? So +5, but -4. +5 and -4. But then I've got to reflect it over the Y-axis. So then I've got to reflect it over this Y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just counting. It's 5 to the line of reflection, so it's 5 away from the line of reflection. This is where point A is going to land. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of, maybe? So let's see what B does, because B is going to do the same thing. We're going to start with B. It's at 2, 3, 2, 3. We're going to rotate it into quadrant 2 and then rotate it into quadrant 3. So we're going to flip those twice. So it's going to still end up with 2, 3, but it's going into quadrant 3, which pattern is negative, negative. So we need to make it -2, -3. -2, -3. Then adds 2 to the line of reflection. So we go 2 the other way, and that is going to be our B. Okay. Normally they would only ask you about one point. They wouldn't make you do both. They would say, you know, just plot A or just plot B. Okay. How many people got at least